All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today, and thanks, Patrick, for a good talk. I think it's actually really good timing that I'm talking about Boost now, so you can kind of hear about the Filecoin perspective and for storage providers, how they'll be providing retrievals to retrieval clients. So today I'll be talking a bit about Boost v2, and in Boost v2, we've actually made the main improvements are around retrieval. So hopefully, I know there's some storage providers at this summit, but I don't actually see any of them in this room, which is a bit unfortunate, but that's okay. We can talk later. So yeah, I'm a product manager at Protocol Labs. I work on the Bedrock team, primarily on Boost, and so really happy to be here today. All right, so quick overview of the agenda. For those of you who might not have heard about Boost, I'll talk super quickly about what it is, go through the motivation for why we wanted to do V2 in the first place, talk about some of the features we have, and then talk about some of the benefits to Filecoin storage providers. Okay, so this is a very text-heavy slide, but you can read through it. Essentially, Boost is a Filecoin markets implementation, one of multiple, but essentially it's a tool that storage providers use to manage data onboarding, storage and retrieval deals on the Filecoin network. And as of last week, there's around 56% of all markets providers on the Filecoin network that are running Boost. And so the other ones are likely running some like Venus markets implementation or maybe Forest or some other one on the network. But right now, the majority are running Boost. So that's pretty neat. And some basic features that Boost provides: interfaces for making storage and retrieval deals via libp2p. There's out-of-the-box web UI that helps you manage storage deals. And there's also a GraphQL interface that allows you to access and update real-time deal information. So all tools that storage providers are using today. All right, and now I will talk about some of the motivation that we had for building out Boost v2. So actually around 1 year ago, around exactly 1 year ago, Hannah and her team, Rod and Kyle, were working on investigating a bunch of retrieval reliability issues, and like on Filecoin specifically with storage providers. And so one of the things that had come up was that a lot of the errors that storage providers were getting as they were trying to attempt to serve these retrievals were DAG store problems. And so it was causing all sorts of problems for these storage providers. They actually provided feedback in addition to kind of the metric stuff that Hannah and her team had collected. And so it was just not a good place to be. And as a result, a lot of retrievals, even though storage providers might have wanted to provide them, were actually not working. And so because it was not scalable as well, it was a single process. And so the team was thinking, hey, how can we make this directory essentially easier for, or more scalable for storage providers, so that if they're storing a lot of client data, maybe lots of small chunks of data, that it would be their index directory would be able to scale appropriately. And so that's essentially the main motivation behind building out the local index directory, and as well as like the first couple steps that we took to scale Boost to multi-node Boost. So main motivation there. All right, and so now I'll talk about the biggest update that came with Boost v2, which is the local index directory. So the name itself is quite descriptive. It's basically a directory that manages and stores indexes of client deal data, specifically for SID-based retrievals. Note, this is not to be confused with IPNI, which is a network indexer. So the network indexer stores indexes across the entire Filecoin network. This index directory specifically is for local. It's like local to a storage provider, and it's specific for the client deals that they are making themselves. So it's only that particular storage provider. All right, so that's one. And then it essentially is a Yugabyte database, and it replaces the DAG store. And it's this horizontally scalable database that you can run, and it stores all your indexes for you. And here I have two diagrams that kind of showcase what exactly is happening when you get a storage deal and when you try to serve a retrieval. So on the left-hand side, on the left-hand side, you see there's a storage client trying to make a storage deal. In the middle, you have Boost. There's a deal data. Oh, wow. This became a different view. There's like deal data that happens there. And essentially what happens is when you're trying to store data, it essentially records information about the sector, it scans the deal data, and then it creates an index given the block CID. So all that stuff, all that information gets stored in the local index directory. And that's great because at the retrieval side, which you see on the right-hand side, a retrieval client will come to the storage provider and ask for a CID like, hey, I want to retrieve this particular CID. And at that point, Boost can then query the local index directory and say, hey, like which piece is this CID in? Where in the piece is it in? As well as like which sector it's in and where in the sector it's in. So all of these offsets are stored in the local index directory. And so that way you can go directly to the ceiling subsystem and grab that particular CID back. All right, and so actually this is a recent enhancement that was made, I think just in the past month, because we had also gotten feedback from storage providers that, hey, while the local index directory might be really great and it's on this scalable database, if you have to manage a bunch of different local index directories for all the different Boost nodes that we're running, that's really like quite painful. And so a lot of the storage providers might be running like multiple Boost and Lotus setups. And so one of the enhancements that we made was enabling you to run a single local index directory that talks to many miner IDs. So basically, this means that you can now connect all your Booster HTTP and Booster Bitswap and Boosty instances to the same shared local index directory instance. And so on the left-hand side, I'll go through this diagram again, but essentially, you see the storage deals coming in, and there's two instances of Boost here. You see, Boosty A and Boosty B, and they're both talking to the same shared local index directory. So when they're scanning the deal data, they store everything in this shared local index directory, and then the individual associated miners will like handle the sealing. And then on the right-hand side, basically you can go to any of these, like, let's say you're trying to retrieve from Booster Bitswap on, how does it label? Booster Bitswap 1. It goes, queries the information from the local index directory, which is shared, and then it can actually go find it in the appropriate like miner that the data is actually stored in. So yeah, all Boosty, Booster HTTP, and Booster Bitswap instances can serve retrievals essentially from any storage provider connected to that shared local index directory instance. And storage deals are basically handled by the respective storage provider, and then all the indices are stored in the local index directory. All right, and then in addition to the local index directory, we also added some retrieval tooling that is very like hand in hand with the local index directory, but essentially you have this new dashboard that kind of showcases, hey, like what's the health of all your storage deals? And so you have a lot more visibility into what's going on. It has, you can quickly identify sectors that have issues and maybe you might need to take some action there. And so there's actually a section around flagged pieces, and these pieces are basically pieces that, if someone were to like ask for a retrieval for something in one of these pieces, like you would run into a problem. So that's pretty neat. You don't have to discover this as the retrieval comes in. You can proactively go fix your pieces. And then another tooling that's pretty neat is that you can actually re-index all your data with this boost doctor command. And so essentially, you do need to have the unsealed file, but essentially you can basically go with this unsealed file and like regenerate all the indexes in that particular file. And then you have all the indices generated for you, and then you can go and serve your retrievals. You can go and serve all your retrievals. So that's some additional tooling that's there. I wanted to talk really quickly about some of the benefits of storage providers, even though none of them are in this room. But, but yeah, essentially you no longer have to rely on the DAG store. And I think because that was causing a lot of pain, hopefully this is a good and great improvement there. Increased visibility into your storage health. Won't talk more about that. There's going to be improved coordination between Lotus and Boost. So Lotus is going through some re-architecture as well, and they're going to be leveraging Yugabyte DB also. So you'll have shared Yugabyte DB instance, and there's some great built-in UI and management tooling that you can use to kind of do your database management. And then there's also first steps towards horizontal scalability for storage providers that are storing client data. So you can read more about how the local index directory and all the Boost V2 stuff works at that link there. Great. And then I really did want to talk about kind of like what's next for storage providers. And so it'd be great to hear your perspectives as well, now that maybe folks here have a little bit more of a glimpse into like how storage providers would provide these storage retrievals. And so actually, like, one of the things that we're thinking about in terms of planning for the next quarter is like what kind of tooling is missing and will be the most helpful, some various ideas listed there, and then some limitations that SPs might be seeing with scaling. And I think one of the biggest questions that I personally have is like, hey, like, what is preventing storage providers from upgrading to V2? And I think one of my hypotheses, which might be true or might be false, but one of my hypotheses is basically that like, hey, storage providers right now are still like retrievals aren't really top of mind for them. And so because a lot of the benefits with Boost V2 is pretty much like all retrievals improvements. And so I think the pain of migrating to V2 might be too high in terms of like the associated benefits that are all kind of retrieval related right now. But yeah, open to discussion or any questions that folks might have at this point. Yeah, that's pretty much it from me. Any questions?